It is with great pleasure that I invite you for our last but definitely not least session. It is our afternoon's panel session. We have assembled a distinguished group of experts who will be sharing their insights and perspectives on the real time ripple effect, breaking the data bottleneck in 2024. Today's discussion promises to be both enlightening and thought provoking as our esteemed panelists explore the strategies and technologies embraced by leading companies to enhance speed and agility in handling large volumes of data. We also want to delve into examples of employing contemporary real-time database data platforms to support AI and machine learning applications, enhance personalized customer experiences, address fraud, and expedite real-time payments securely with increased data, all while generating new revenue. So, undoubtedly, we shall leave with valuable insights and a blueprint to propel your organization's growth in the coming years by augmenting real time capabilities. So, I am honored to introduce three amazing panelists: Avik, Avikshit Bhushan, Vice President for APAC in Japan at Aerospike, Guru Raj Bayari, who's the Senior Specialist Solutions Architect at AWS, and Purushottama Puru Purushenoy, CTO at IBM Singapore. So, without taking too much of your time, let's dive right into the panel discussion.
Is it audible now? Okay. Thank you, Poonam. It was a few great sessions that we had before this, so I mean, it's a tough act to follow. I was just thinking about it when we just walked in and realized that the first time Guru and I met, it was probably 21, 22 years back, and the location was Singapore. We were actually working for a public sector company here. I remember back in the day when we were working with them, there was a time when talking of data, they were actually doing manual backups on tape, and the tape drives had to be exported manually to a location in a data center where they would make sure you had a backup copy. Those were the days. I don't know if you remember that, Puru, but that's where we've come from. From there to now, there's been a lot of change, obviously. But what interests me from your perspective and working for IBM right now is how do you see that journey, right, from there to now, and how that has evolved over the years?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Uh, Let me talk about data silos because I think when we started this journey with a public sector in Singapore, is they had a legacy system and they needed to expose that to the resident and citizens of Singapore. So here we call it e-services, for example, where you can log into any government agency and you can avail all the benefits or check your balance and all of those. So this is how new data silos are generally created, but not because it need to be created, but there is a strong business requirement because sometimes customer experience drives creation of new applications and solutions, right? So what we did is in this case, we had to look at data availability because for us, when we start thinking about data silos, I think data availability becomes key for making any business critical decisions, right? So we had to, like Avik talked about how we evolved. So maybe that time, we had certain technologies which we could use, which is, I would say, traditional RDBMS, and we took the major benefit from that, especially around high availability and disaster recovery. But if I need to redesign that solution today, maybe I could have used solutions like Aerospike, for example, right? Purpose-built solutions to address some of the customer requirement. So I would say that that time that solution really worked, and we could still get the benefit of RDBMS and then still provide solution to the client. But if I look back and now if I need to redesign the whole solution from data availability standpoint, probably I would look at purpose-built solutions and also achieve higher data availability with lower latency, for example, right? So this is one of the use case which I have worked on, which I would consider probably not as complex as what we have today. But maybe Guru, from your perspective, right? So you have been working with a lot of telcos, and especially the Australian telco, which we worked together, which had very complex business. So it had fixed line, it had mobile, it had broadband, and there were multiple data silos, right? And you really needed an integrated solution to address this. So can you share, I talked about a very simple example. So maybe in a complex data silo architecture, how did you manage to, put together a solution and address the client concerns?
Hey, hi everyone. Yeah, the major challenge what we faced, right? So when we were supporting or building this middleware platform, which was trying to consolidate all of these data silos, was like breaking the data silos first of all, and then second is cross-functional collaboration between the teams, and then applying the governance model, and then providing automated access control for this data. Right? These were the major challenges what we faced. And most of these functions or departments, they were generating a lot of data. But most of these data was all silos and they were not shared with other functional teams. Even when it was shared, it was a CSV file or an export in an Excel file, or it had its own siloed reports, right? So even if you want to add an additional field into that Excel or the CSV export, or if you want to modify that siloed report, that would require like almost a month's lead time, right? So you have to make those changes, get concurrence from multiple stakeholders, even before you can think of deploying it into production. That was a major challenge what we observed. But now, working with various other AWS customers over the period, so what we have observed, the first and key component is consolidating these the data silos into a centralized data lake, right? So how do we do it, right? So there are a lot of tools which you can use to integrate these data silos and get the data into your data lake and implement governance and automated access control on top of that data. But that integration is the key part, right? So that's one. And once you have that data in and consolidated centralized data lake, then you can build various visualization, automated analytical tools. You can provide these automated analytical tools to the business users so that they can build their own reports without any IT involvement or heavy IT involvement, right? And again, having this cross-functional collaboration, the getting data from multiple sources has a lot of benefit and brings a lot of insights into it. If I take an example, so building a dashboard covering like your ERP system, marketing system or marketing automation system, a sales reporting tool can have like, building those visualization can get a lot of insights for you. So for example, your financial team can have a look at what is the cost for marketing, what is the cost for sales operations, and then what is the returns we are getting, right? What is the revenue which is generated? Similarly, the marketing team in real time can look into this data and see my digital advertisement campaign which I ran, how much sales opportunities generated by this? What are the prospects which are generated, right? That's the kind of insights we get by integrating all of these silos into one system or getting that insights like single unified view of the data, right? So similarly, there are a lot of challenges, right? So when we do this, like integrating with various relational and non-relational databases, there are various connectors, there are various automated tools to discover these relational, non-relational databases, but there are few challenges. So I think you and me, we have worked on various relational and non-relational database companies, right? So what do you think, like how the technology has evolved over a period of time in this space?
Yeah, sure, Guru. And I think, like you said, you and me have worked with a number of companies in the past. I think things have changed over the years, right? Back in the day when we were working with those companies, what was relevant for a company was really the four walls of the data within the company, right? That was what people would use to derive insights and so on. But what we have seen over the years is that has changed. Now it's not just the data within the four walls, but you're talking of data which is all over the place. So agility of your data models becomes very critical. I mean, to give you an example, during the COVID crisis that all of us were in, right? Um, the best predictor of where an outbreak would happen or where it would, sort of lead on and grow very rapidly was actually not through government channels, but actually through Google flew trends, right? They had a better insight of where this would happen than any kind of a government organization. And the reason that's the case is because search is an unbiased way of looking at it, but they were able to capture people's sort of behaviors and what they're doing and predict where this could happen. So that's the power of data that we're talking about. And really, any business today operating in any industry vertical, unless they're agile enough to capture those data models, it's not possible to operate today. And I think, given what Srini and Sebastian spoke about, right, it's not just the data that we're talking about here, meaning the agility of how you store the data and the data models. It's also the access patterns that we're seeing that is continuing to evolve. How are you accessing these data? Because the data that you're talking about, it's evolving as we speak, right? Graph data models that we're talking about, right? So, for example, there are two companies that come to mind that I work with. One in Philippines, a large telco. So these guys, they realized that they had the power of the data of all the users that they had across the larger Philippines market. And they said, hey, if I can monetize this by looking at where the customer is today, basis the location he or she is in, I can start upselling stuff to them. So they use geospatial data to upsell and cross-sell stuff to customers basis the location of the person. And obviously that meant the ecosystem had to be built, and they made money out of it. And likewise, another telco, just talking of telco as an example, right? There's a large telco in India where the customization for every single user is done basis the behavior of that user over a period of time and the likes and dislikes of the user. And that can help you as an organization, regardless of which industry vertical you are, to look at what can you sell to the customer, what can you sell more, because you need to expand the larger bucket of offerings that you have to the customers. So I think agility, clearly, Guru, to your question, is something which is very important, which has changed over the years. And I think that's a key aspect to look at. But having said that, right, and just taking a pivot towards another area, right, Puru, one of the things that has changed over the years is also about things around governance, data governance. And the second thing is about privacy. I mean, I work in the India market, obviously, and what we heard last year was the government passing something called a DPDP Act. So DPDP Act is a consent-based, act where users can decide how long the data should be stored. It's similar to GDPR, but very different as well. So I think privacy and governance, if you can talk about it from IBM's perspective, that will be great.
Sure. I think, if you are thinking that we are not going to have data silos in the future, probably we are dreaming, right? I think as we build new and new application, there will be multiple data sources and data silos. I think in the previous session, we talked about how to pick the purpose-built database based on your use cases, right? So I think we will have this kind of multiple data silos, but I think important is how to bring all these together in a much more governed manner. I think data fabric is one architecture where we see that, how do we simplify the access to these multiple data sources in a much more governed manner. So what IBM is doing is, we came up with this data fabric architecture where if customers have invested in different databases or data lakes or data warehouses, we will be able to bring all these together in a much more governance manner. So data governance and data access is integral part of this, so that we can use data virtualization without moving the data to provide quick value to the business, right? I mean, one of the previous discussion I had is data availability. Sometimes maybe you need not require the data immediately, but sometimes you need the data in real time, right? And those are specific use cases. So if we are looking at, I'm going to build one platform which does all of this, I think it's going to be challenging. So I think we need to embrace this world of having data in silos, but bring it in a manner that is more consumable and also more beneficial to the business users, right? Uh, let's go back to data governance, right? I think, and data privacy specifically, I would give my perspective both from traditional AI standpoint and then Gen AI as well. So if you look at traditional AI, especially in industries like financial services or healthcare, right? There is a huge discussion around sharing the data across the hospital. So like in case of Singapore, probably we have clusters of hospitals, and then we have Ministry of Health, and they need the data to provide better patient experience or citizen experience in Singapore, for example. And same thing with financial services as well, right? So, but then we have this notion of, these sensitive data, right? PI information, or, it could be highly sensitive information. how do we use this information to build the data model, build the machine learning model in a traditional way, and then still get the value out of it, right? So we came up with this data fabric architecture where data privacy has, when you look at the data, you look at the metadata to see what kind of data is stored where. And then once you have the metadata, then you'll be able to mask the data or redact the data, depends on the requirement. And then you'll be able to provide that to the AI users to build the model, right? That's one way to do it. Second is we are also looking at federated learning, where we are unable to share the data, but then we still need to leverage the model and then the data built in a, for example, in case of Indonesia, they have a huge data residency requirement. They don't want to share the data beyond Indonesia, but there are some attributes which I want to leverage across APAC or ASEAN, right? So those cases we will look at federated learning as an option. So what I'm saying is that depends on the data privacy and the data governance requirement. You need to embrace different styles of integration as well as different styles of adoption of these technologies, right? And coming to the Gen AI, why it's important is, I think everybody knows about Chat GPT. November last year created a lot of buzz, right? But it also brought in a lot of challenges as well, especially around data privacy, right? And we saw a lot of people suing, based on the copyright, for example, right? And again, the core there is data. So maybe they have not taken care of the data, but what IBM is doing is we are kind of indemnifying our clients for any third party IP rights, right? Which means that we know what is the data used to train the model. And we in fact publish the data, and probably we are the only one who published the data that this is the data IBM used to train our Gen AI model. And that's the reason we are able to indemnify confidently, because enterprise clients, they really want us as IBM or maybe any enterprise client, they want them to be protected from all of these, right? So again, it's related to data privacy, but more from the Gen AI standpoint, right? I think if I put, or if I sum it up all together, I think data privacy and data governance play a significant role both in case of traditional AI and Gen AI. And I believe that the world is going to be hybrid. It's not going to be just Gen AI use cases or traditional AI use cases. The customer will get benefit when we combine both traditional AI with Gen AI. I think that's the use cases we are seeing working with Singapore clients as well as APAC clients, right? So maybe that's my point of view, but I really want to ask Guru that when we talk about all of this, I talked about primarily in the context of, let's say, on premise, where I have multiple applications, multiple data silos, right? But clients also want to embark on a cloud journey for various reasons, including agility, time to market, cost, and various. So there is a perception that when I move to a cloud, right, am I going to create a new data silo? Okay, if yes, right, how do we kind of bring all together and still get the benefit of cloud as well as whatever investment clients have made on their on-prem solution? Can you just share that? Is it a new silo? If yes, what are the ways clients can address this? Because this is going to be a very common phenomena. I see that for some use cases, client wants to stay on-prem, but for some use cases, they really want to move to cloud. But then this natural question comes in: is the right platform? Is it the right way to adopt this architecture? So if you can throw some light on that, maybe it would be great.
Yeah, I would say there are two options, right? So as you rightly mentioned already, so there are two options. One, you can go with a centralized data lake option or a lake house, combining data warehouse and data lake, where you would consolidate all the data silos into one place, where you have a centralized data. You apply all the access controls, governance models to control who can access what kind of data, who owns the data, all that kind of controls you could have. And you have one source of truth, right? So you have all the data at one place where you could share it with other cross-functional teams based on their requirement and what access rights they could have, right? So you can share those data. That's one way of looking at. And second one, what you said, like some customers have already made some investment on some of the data silos which they have created in on-prem, and some they have it on cloud. So how can they use it? So that's where data virtualization comes into picture. So you already mentioned about data virtualization. So basically with data virtualization, you don't need to physically copy your data from various data silos into one centralized location. So you could run data federated queries across your data silos and get one unified view of your data. So though the data is in separate data silos, but you could still run in one unified visualization and get all the data. For example, using some of the tools like Presto, Athena, all right? So these are some tools where you could, I'm just giving some examples which you could use to do this data virtualization. And similarly, for some of the organizations which are like completely on cloud, for example, digitally,
DNB business.
basically the DNB customers, right? So they have all their data already in cloud. For them, it is relatively easier to consolidate them into one data lake or data warehouse and then run all their data requirement through that data lake. Okay. But there are customers who have spread, even on a digital native business, right? So when they have a lot of applications on the cloud, they could still use some of these federated tools. For example, if you are using Athena, it can read from your relational database, it can read from your data warehouse, it can read from various non-relational databases with single syntax of SQL query. You don't need to build a separate syntax for it. But only disadvantage there is like you're putting additional load onto your operational data sources.
Correct.
Right? But you get some benefit, that is like your real-time integration. You don't need to do an additional integration, copying your data into another location. All that is not required. You have a real-time access to your data, but you are putting additional load onto your real-time databases as well.
Yeah. See, even in DNB, right? I mean, we were having a chat on this table during lunch that they might acquire a new company, right? So, as part of mergers and acquisition, also, even if you are a DNB business, you might still need to integrate that, but until then, you will still have data. So, in those cases as well, we can use data virtualization
Exactly.
technologies
Even in those cases, like data virtualization comes in handy, right?
Okay.
And again, along with data virtualization, there is another governance part, as you already covered.
Yeah.
So you can use tools like, for example, Amazon data zones. So where you can create various zones which can automatically discover, first of all, catalog, discover and share your data, and also handle all your access control, everything at one place. And it can do it on cloud or on-prem or any other third-party system. So it need not be only cloud. It can span across the like hybrid scope what you're talking about. It can be on-prem, cloud, or even for that matter, third-party systems.
Okay.
Right? And again, so far we are primarily focusing our discussion on data of past, right? So that is data in batch or data which already have in our system. But there are a lot of growing opportunities in real-time data processing, which Sini already covered, right? So for example, real-time predictions or recommendation engines. So for example, in case of your credit card transactions, doing a real-time prediction to identify a fraudulent transaction is very beneficial.
Yep.
Similarly, for an e-commerce retail business, so based on user behavior, you do recommend additional or personalized recommendations or like dynamic pricing, right? So these are some of the use cases where we see our customers getting benefited from real-time processing and analytics. So Avik, you have worked with like various customers in these real-time processing and real-time analytics, right? So can you like enlighten us?
Oh, sure.
Some of your
Happy to.
journey?
In fact, India is probably ahead of the curve when it comes to some of these real-time use cases, right? Just to give you a simple example, a lot of you would have heard of it, the UPI story, right? I mean, you heard of it again and again. Let me talk of another aspect of it, right? You go to a merchant anywhere in India, obviously it's ease to use, which is a key thing, which we all know about. But what has it done to the vendor out there? What has time that they've saved done to them, right? The merchant out there, a small vegetable shop, he or she would have probably sold to 2 or 3 people. Now they can do 5 transactions. The reason they can do that is it's so quick. Otherwise, he or she would have to look for change, pass on money, cash, all the issues related to that. So UPI has not only made it easy for people to use, but it has changed the game. Revenue dimension has changed. They're able to do a lot more because of time. So time dimension, talking of real time, right? What is it you're getting? Obviously, data dimension we already talked about. We're now talking of time dimension. The more time you save, the more revenue you get. So time is directly related to revenue. So real time, the main reason why it is becoming popular across industry segments is because of that. Now, having looked at it from a perspective of a vegetable vendor who's selling stuff to people, look at the other side of the story. Srini briefly alluded to it, right? The story with the large payment company in the US. Now, the use case there obviously is related to fraud. But from the use case that they pretty much ran before Aerospike to today, they were looking at essentially having $4.5 million at risk every single day because of a slower database. Now, obviously, it meant a whole bunch of false positives that they otherwise wouldn't have caught and so on. But with Aerospike, because of speed and the ability to access large volumes of data, what was at risk with $4.5 million per day went down significantly. So you're talking about the real-time use cases being relevant for, I mean, really across industry segments. And invariably with customers that we work with in Asia Pac and specifically in markets like India and Indonesia, it is about latency, which is very, very critical. And when we talk of latency and response time, we are talking of real time. I mean, needless to say, any B2C use case today, right? If it is not real time, I mean, I remember the days when we were working together, right? People would say, I run a report which is, T minus 2, T minus 3, sometimes T minus 7 as well. It used to be common back then. Today, if you're running a business which is T minus 1 and over, you're probably not going to be relevant anymore. In fact, as a simple example, right? The UPI story itself, the banks, large banks in India, and some of them are our customers too now, they initially said UPI is not going to fly. They didn't even buy into that argument. What happened? The likes of PhonePe, the like of Google Pay, and so on, they completely took market share. And now some of these large banks have no market share whatsoever in UPI. Around 75 to 80% of the market is PhonePe and few other vendors that we're talking about. No big banks at all. Each of those UPI players that we're talking about has been using Aerospike at scale for many years on end. So I think for every industry segment, a lot of you are in the I mean, the DNB business, but regardless of which industry segment, this is going to become very critical. The ability to handle real-time use cases, it's in for sure, and we have to think about it. But having said that, right, I just to pivot to another area now, right? A lot of the buzz today in the market is about generative AI, right? I mean, all of us with customers, when we talk to them, they come to us and say, "Hey, is there a use case with Aerospike or whatever that can be relevant for Gen AI?" So I just wanted to ask, with Tupuru and Guru, right, to share their thoughts. Is it for real? Is it a myth? Is it more of hype right now? What are your thoughts?
Um, from IBM standpoint, I wanted to really share that we are in AI for business. Okay, I think that is the fundamental difference between IBM and probably the others in the market. So we work with enterprise client, and they have requirements to meet regulatory requirements and others, right? So if you ask me, we picked up 3 use cases. So to answer your question, yes, it is a reality, and clients are embracing Gen AI, but they also understand the challenges posed by Gen AI as well, right? So let me talk about 3 use cases which IBM is focusing on the Gen AI. So first is customer service, right? When I talk about customer service, you might think that it's a chatbot, right? But actually, it is much beyond that. So when I say customer service today, yeah, the journey starts with answering your questions, right? So you might want to, let's take an example of financial services, right? Uh, if you provide, and I mean, I generally hate to call chatbot, because for me it's really an conversational AI assistant, I would put it that way, right? Why? Because eventually, let's say my daughter is 17 years now, right? I don't think so she's going to a website and going to do a banking transaction 5 years down the line. Okay, she is going to use probably WhatsApp, she is going to use probably a conversation AI to do all of this. Okay, so the point is the entire business process will be driven by conversational AI in the future. Okay, even I've seen the entire websites are moving towards conversational AI. You don't need to go and say, oh, I go to a X company's website and go and click on contact us and I will try to contact. I don't think so people will do that in the future. They will just go to the conversation area and say, I want to, know the location of this company, give me that. Right? I don't want to go 3 buttons click, go to the menu and do it. So that's how the Gen AI is going to change the way customers are going to interact with the organizations, right? So going back to the conversational AI interface, so yes, it starts. Let's take the example, right? Banking. I want to look at the credit card which is much suited for me. So I give details like, this is my preference. I want to get the best. I'm a travel guy. I want benefits of travel and all of those points, right? And then it should be able to give me a recommended card, for example, right? So maybe X bank gives me a card saying that, okay, this is the best travel card I have. That's where we combine your Gen AI with traditional AI, because the recommendation will still come from based on the data from others and segmentation and all of those. Then I say, yes, okay, I like this card, but I don't want to go to another website and say, apply for this card. I will continue my whole journey in the same conversational AI interface. I say, okay, I like this card, apply for this card, right? Then and there in the same conversational interface. Then I apply, then it goes to, the backend. And this is where I believe that, uh, you know, databases like Aerospike, where you have the huge customer base, right? All the profile information, everything ready, because I don't want to probably hit the backend for every such conversational AI interface, but I will have this user cache in Aerospike so that I will get a much more faster response. And then it will probably help me to do that. Then I get my card. Okay, then I want to activate. We all know that once you get a card, you need to activate, right? Again, if you go to today, I might have to log into a digital service of a bank and then give my card number and then click on activate. But no, I will same use the conversational interface. I say I received my card, I want to activate. So the whole user experience in a conversational AI interface with Gen AI now is going to be much more experienced from customer standpoint. And I think people like my daughter or all this Gen Z, I think that's the future they are going to have. And I mean, my daughter doesn't call me, right? She just message me in WhatsApp, right? So I think Gen AI is going to play a significant role in customer service from that standpoint, but it's also about operationalizing the whole business process. Okay, so that is one use case. Second is HR. Okay, it's really about improving the productivity. Today, let's say I need to hire for a specific job. I need to go through the entire process of identifying the job description, which is the role. I need to set up interviews, all of this. Imagine you have a virtual assistant which basically asks few questions and does this for you, and even post that in a LinkedIn, right, which is more popular for hiring people right now. So all of those manual mundane tasks which requires 10 steps, we will be able to orchestrate that using the conversational AI. So IBM has kind of released a product called Watson Orchestrate, which does all of this for you. And idea is to really augment the human intelligence, right? I think we are a strong believer of the fact that it is AI is here to improve the productivity of the people and not to replace people, right? We are a very strong believer of that. And this will give a lot of time to the individuals to do other jobs, right? More high value tasks, right? So that's the second use case we are focusing on. And the third is around code assistant, right? I think it's a huge topic. I mean, especially for IBM, we are very much focused on code assistant for Z. There is a lot of code written in COBOL, okay, over a period of, I don't know, 30 plus years. How do we convert that to Java code? Okay, so that's the focus for IBM, because we have a lot of clients who are using our mainframe technology and COBOL, and we really want to help them to transform and be cloud native and use this microservices architecture. So we are helping our clients with code assistant, very specific to, right now we released code assistant for Z, which will help all our clients to transform their COBOL to Java so that they can be more cloud native. So these are the three use cases I see. But I think in terms of the challenges, right, I think maybe there are few, but maybe Guru, from your perspective, I talked about the use cases, right, which I see as a low hanging fruit at the moment. But tell us some of the challenges you see in the market in adoption of Gen AI.
Yeah, definitely. Gen AI brings a lot of benefits, and you see like AWS also making like a lot of announcements during our reInvent last year. So similar products, right? And also platform for training your Gen AI models using large LLM models, embedded LLM models with Bedrock and Amazon Titan, our own LLM models. So all that is true, but adoption is not that great, right? So like, there are people who are adopting it, but if you see, there are a lot of misconception, the trust deficit with these Gen AIs, because many of the users, they think it is a black box, and they don't know whether the generated data, whether it is true or whether it can be reliable or whether it can be trusted. So that's one challenge. The second one being many of the times this data generated is very biased, right? So it's very important for organizations to train these models based on an unbiased and diverse data set, right? Not focus on training it on a very biased data set and making biased recommendations. So the second challenge, what I see, customers not willing to adopt a Gen AI. And third one, you already mentioned about that, which is the IP concerns, right? So where there are a lot of companies which have sued these Gen AI companies, saying like they use like scrapping the web and getting their IP information to train the model and doing the suggestions, right? So it's very important for organizations to consider that, both from sensitive information, security, and using what IP information while training the model, right? So you also need to look at sensitive information from your organization data perspective.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I think great points, Guru and Puru, right? You talked about the benefits, some of the things that you're seeing which might apply, some of it that doesn't apply. My view is, I think it's an evolution. Right now, what Gen AI is doing for all of us is mine information that, I mean, we would have taken time to do, which Gen AI can do in a great way. But I think the human element is still missing, right? Which means the creative aspect of Gen AI is still a long way to go, which is good news for all of us in terms of jobs and so on. And just a simple example, right? Can you do what a Mona Lisa was? I mean, that was drawn. Can anybody do that right now with a Gen AI tool? No way. The creative element is going to take time. To mine information that's already available, definitely Gen AI is a great product, and we'll continue to see use cases even in the B2B segment where people are going to adopt it. So I think great points. I think we talked about various aspects, right from AI to data to governance and so on. Maybe we could open it up, Poonam, for some questions if people have it.
Thank you for that, for all that insightful information. But I'd like to open the floor for questions, or maybe I could perhaps ask a question and you could answer. um, just a quick one. What specific challenges do you or your organizations face when it comes to managing and processing large volumes of data in real time? Anybody would like to answer? Like just any challenges that you've seen so far in your organizations, perhaps? Yep. Your microphone is not turned on.
You can press the mute here.
You can use
Okay, yeah. So one of the things which came up, I think, multiple times is the choice of technologies, right? So when we kind of end up using the wrong technology to process, large amounts of data, we end up, paying a lot of money. So I think that's been a challenge, right? Depending on the use case, you need to select the technology. And I've seen instances where you select a technology, but you really don't know how to use a certain technology, right? You're configuring it the wrong way. So we've kind of, just through optimizations, changing technologies, we've been able to save millions of dollars in my previous experience. So yeah, I would say that's one of the challenges, I mean, I've faced multiple times in my career. Yeah.
Anybody else? Do you have something to say with regards to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Srini briefly talked about, when he was answering question on the startup, right? That I would say that, have a long-term view. Of course, we know we are living in a very era of, technology changes every 2 years, right? But I think, I when I design a solution, I was talking to one of the guys here. So also have a exit strategy in mind. Okay, when you embark on any new technology, right? I mean, it need not be like one company or another company, but have that exit strategy, so that when I say exit strategy, that how, if technology evolves or technology changes, how fast you can embrace it, without much. If you look at data migration, for example, it takes a lot of time and money, right? So my experience as a practitioner is, try to anticipate at least 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, and have a thought through exit strategy, that if something goes wrong with certain technology, what is that you want to have an alternative, and how fast you can embrace those new technologies. So that's one thing we always think. I mean, for us, it's a guiding principle, I will call architectural guiding principles, which you should look at, right? I mean, of course, even I mean, the classic example I would say is, data lake architecture 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0. It's evolved, right? But during that time, we got benefit from those architecture, but now we have this whole lakehouse architecture now, right? And at one point in time, we thought that compute and storage has to be together for better performance. Now we are saying, no, I cannot scale. Now it has to be separate, right? So, I mean, architecture and technology evolves. Okay, I think that's given, I would say. So, as a technologist, I would always think that, okay, these are the guiding principles. I will have it, and if something really goes wrong with the specific technology, how fast I can embrace the other technologies, what I will look at.
Yeah, one quick comment on that, right? And what we find from a database perspective, right? Databases tend to be very sticky. So what we generally recommend to customers is not look at it just in terms of the 1 or 2 year horizon, but look at it from a long term, because the cost to change, right, is so much, it's not even worth it. It's not even funny. It's really, really expensive. So sometimes when we talk to customers, they say, hey, right now we may not have the scale that Aerospike looks at. But we've grown. I think Srini also talked about 1 or 2 use cases where customers have grown with us. So right at the beginning, if you see a scale kind of requirement, not just database, in general, in most technology areas, it's important to think through what might happen if your business scales. I think from that perspective, a cost to change is always more expensive than starting off with something which is good for your scale. So I would look at that in that way for sure.
Anybody else would like to share some challenges?
My question is, I mean, I totally get the whole user experience thing, as well as the, what Avik, you talked about, the creativity thing about Gen AI. I think my view is that we have passed the stage where that is skepticism. I think everybody is going to have to use it. The question I have is, how do businesses actually use this technology without to actually create business value, right? Because at some point you got to show return on investment. The general purpose kind of answers from ChatGPT, I think they're very valuable, especially to pass courses in colleges. It looks like.
Yeah.
So, but more importantly, right? It really improves productivity and a whole bunch of tasks which consumers do.
Yeah.
But for a business, they might not be, this is my opinion, that's what I'd like your opinion on, is
Sure.
I don't think they're going to share the data and load it into OpenAI or Google.
Exactly.
So how do they kind of somehow mix and match and get real return on investment on this?
So maybe, I will talk about IBM. So 2 years back, I mean, before even Gen AI buzz was there, we took a project called Ask HR, okay, which means if you look at, I'm a first line manager or a second line manager in IBM, okay. I have 60 reportees, 50 reportees, and I need to log into Workday to do HR. I need to go to Checkpoint to do performance management. I need to go, if somebody is applying for a PR or citizenship, IBM need to give a letter. So that is another system. So as a manager, I need to log into 10 different systems to get the work done. Okay. So what we did is we created this Ask HR virtual assistant, which actually, I won't say eliminated, but it improved the productivity of a manager, because now I have one single interface. I don't log into 5. Workday, if I need to transfer one person from my team to another, I just type, I want to transfer this X person to Y, and everything behind the scene is taken care of. It is out of the box integrated with Workday, everything. So that is real, and I'm using it. And it's made available in Slack, so that I don't even need to log into browser now, right? So that's a huge productivity use case within IBM, and we saved, I would say, thousands of hours. Okay. Second is promotion cycle. Okay. So we are such a large organization. We do, let's say, twice a year or sometimes thrice a year promotion cycle, right? And capturing the information from different, because there are quantitative, there are qualitative assessment, right? So how do I, and it used to take the promotion cycle probably weeks before I communicate the actual promotion to the employee, because a lot of humans are involved, and there are a lot of tasks generate from this website. What is the learning hour from this website? Because we look at both skills as well as other performance benchmark. So this process has been cut down significantly, because of the Gen AI. So these are the two use cases internally we are using, and we are calling ourselves client zero. Because if I want to position my Gen AI solution, the customer will ask me, have you used yourself first? And these are the two use cases I will share with our client, that internally I am using it and I'm showing you a demo of that live, right? So this is one of the use cases we are using in IBM to improve the productivity. And now we are looking at other use cases. For example, we have a huge consulting business, right? So how do we use code assistant to improve the productivity of the developer? And this will have a concrete business benefit. Today, if I take certain things, 3 days to do something, maybe I will do it in 2 days or maybe a day, right? The other use case which we are working on is synthetic test data generation, right? Imagine if you need to generate a test data for certain use cases, right? I need to create those test cases manually or maybe semi-automated. So imagine I give a bunch of data set and tell the Gen AI that give me a generated synthetic data. So my testing effort will be significantly improved. So these are the use cases we are internally using within IBM, and we are advocating the same thing to our clients as well.
That's fantastic. Does that answer your question? Fantastic. Anybody else has any questions? We're keeping the floor open. I like silence sometimes, but not now.
Yeah, we are open
But,
for any questions.
Yes.
I think, yeah.
Well, I have a question, I guess. Has anybody had any first-hand experience of or examples of AI machine learning applications powered by real-time data that have positively impacted business outcomes? Apart from the team over here. None? Have a think about it. Would you like to? Yeah.
Yeah, so we've had a lot of use cases in the healthcare domain in the US. So we've used to get a lot of claim data, member data, and then we used to look at member health risks, and we used to kind of even proactively diagnose some of the conditions before even a doctor could, right? So I would say that we've built a bunch of models to really improve member health outcomes, right? I mean, if you can diagnose something 4 to 6 months earlier, your end outcome would be much better for the member, right? And then we also build a lot of models when it comes to fraud, waste, and abuse. So we look at all the claim data whenever there are providers who are charging more for a procedure they should not be in a certain region. So we have a bunch of fraud, waste, abuse models. We've done that. Uh, yeah, I think those are some of the top ones. And then we've also done a lot of things around smart claim adjudication and so on. Yeah.
So maybe Guru, I think when we were discussing earlier, you talked about the insurance use case. So maybe it's worth sharing because it brings the combination of real time as well as analytics and AI ML.
So, yeah, again, one North American-based customer with whom we were working. So they've built a model where they do a real-time prediction of insurance premium. So based on uh, users' driving pattern and how he's using that vehicle, what is the terrain he's driving the vehicle, and daily how far he's going with that vehicle. So it's a telemetry device we have in the car, which sends all this telemetry information, ingests that data into cloud, and we aggregate, and every month we have a model which predicts what would be the premium. So it gives a lot of benefit, right? So one is insurance company can now give a benefit to a driver who is taking care of his car and taking care of his driving behavior. So you give discount to him, but at the same time, if a driver is abusing his car, so you fine him, right? And at the same time, it is helpful for the driver as well, so the owner of the car. So he gets a benefit, like he get a discount from the insurance perspective, but also he get a feedback how good he is driving his car, whether he is abusing his car or he is properly driving his car, what improvements he can do with the driving behavior. That kind of an insights is provided back to him every month. So that's the use case we are working. So that's how it helped insurance company to minimize number of claims which they are getting, and also at the same time help the customer reduce their premium cost, monthly premium for the insurance. Right, it involves like real-time data ingestion plus prediction in real time.
I think it's definitely interesting use case, right? But again, the member should also sign up. I remember, I mean, the insurance reaching out to me, I was like, no way, I'm putting a tracker in my car.
Gets into ethical aspects of it. Anyway.
That's a great discussion. That's a very fantastic discussion. Just looking at the time, we're just 5 minutes to the end. Let's keep our questions and our thoughts for later when we have our networking discussion. But in the meantime, thank you very much, panelists, for this amazing conversational session. Thank you so
for
much.
having us. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We have a round of applause for them. Thank you.